valuation of bonds. We talked on a redeemable bond. We talked on a redeemable bond. We also discussed on an irredeemable bond. Then number 3, we had a convertible bond. And we were here, right? We were discussing on a convertible bond. We did one illustration, and now I wanted us to do another illustration for the same, so that we can understand the whole concept the way it is. So, there's a document that I'll share. So that other illustration of a convertible bond, I'll be projecting it so that we can have a look at it, all of us. So there it is. It says, Lenana Limited is currently issuing a 9% bonds, redeemable at 100 shillings per value in 5 years' time. Alternatively, each bond may be converted on that date. Into 20 ordinary shares of the company. The current market price per share is 4.5 shillings, and this is expected to grow at the rate of 6.5% per annum for a foreseeable future. The company's cost of debt is 7% per annum. Required market value of the bond, flow value of the bond, and the conversion premium per share. That is the question that you are having. So we start with the first one, the market value of the bond. Market value of the bond. I believe we are all there. So market value of the bond. When you are asked the market value, you are an investor. You want to convert or redeem this bond. When you look at that question, we've been told that the original purpose of the bond is to redeem, right? The original purpose of that bond is to redeem that kind of bond. But you've been told an alternative, whereby they say that we have an option to convert that similar bond, right? So for you as an investor, you must look at a situation which will do what? You'll maximize your returns. You'll maximize your returns. And that will always explain the market value. So for such kind of a question, the market value will always be the higher of redemption and conversion. The market value will always be the higher of redemption and conversion, right? So we've been told that this bond can be redeemed. On redemption, we can redeem it at what price? We can redeem it at 100, right? When we redeem, we can redeem it at 100. But when we convert, we don't have. That is what we want to calculate. When we convert, what will be the conversion amount? What will be the conversion amount? We are told that the bond can be converted into 20 ordinary shares, right? So one bond can be converted into 20 ordinary shares, right? The market price of this security, is of ordinary shares is at what price? We are told the market price of ordinary shares is 4.45 shillings. The growth rate is 6.5%. 6.5%. So what we do here, we need to determine the price of 20 ordinary shares after 5 years, right? The price of 20 ordinary shares after 5 years. This will be done by compounding, where we say future value is equals to the present value multiplied by 1 plus r raised to power negative n. Sorry, power n, not negative n, because you are compounding. So here we shall say our present value is 4.45, the price of 1 share today. Then we compound it using the growth as our compounding factor. So it will be 1 plus 0.65 raised to power 5. What are we getting? What are we getting when you calculate kindly? Hello, are we there? Okay, my calculator gives me 0.0969. So this is what I'm getting. But now, this is for 1 share. So we shall multiply by 20 to get the value for 20 shares. So we multiply by 20. 121.938. 121.938. So this is the value, the conversion value, right? So if we redeem, we'll redeem at 100. If we convert, we shall convert at 121, right? So here, the market value, to determine the market value, we shall determine the market value when converting, right? We shall determine the market value when converting because it will give the highest return on converting than redeeming. So here we shall say our market value will be equal to interest multiplied by present value interest factor of an annuity, R% n years plus R% n years plus conversion value multiplied by present value interest factor R% n years, right? So the interest here, we are told that the bond is a 9% bond. We are told that the bond is a 9% bond. So interest will be 0.09 times the par value of 100, then we multiply by present value interest factor of an annuity, present value interest factor of an annuity. The KD is 7%. 7%, how many years? Five years. 7%, 5 years. Plus conversion value, which is 121.938 times present value interest factor, 7%, 9 years. 7%, 9 years. So here we shall say 9% of 100 is 9 shillings multiplied by present value interest factor of an annuity. Present value interest factor of an annuity 7%, 5 years. 7% 5 years gives me 4.1002. 4.1002 plus 4.1002. We add, I believe we are seeing, I believe now it's visible. So it's 9 times 4.1002. Then we add 121.938 multiplied by present value interest factor. Present value interest factor, 7%, 9 years. When I look at my table, it's give me 0.7130. 0.7130. 0.7130. It's 5 years, not 9 years. Sorry, 5 years, not 9 years. So it's 0.7130. When you multiply everything, what are we getting? When I multiply anything on conversion, we shall get 123.8435. 8435 per share. 123.8435 per share. This will be 8636 when you round off. 123.8436 per share. Up to that point, are we correct? Are we okay? So we have converted the bond. We have converted the bond, or rather we said we've determined the market value. Part B, we are asked to determine the flow value. To determine the flow value. We determine the flow value. So I'll wrap up here. So our market value here, 123.8436. So that is part one. So part B, we've been asked to determine the flow value. The flow value is always the lowest amount, right? The lowest amount. So if you have two options, redemption and conversion, we always pick the lowest, right? We said that if we redeem, we shall do what? We shall redeem at 100. If we convert, we shall convert at 121 point, I think it was 121.93. 121.93, right? So these were the issues, if we convert and if we redeem. So here we shall pick the lowest amount to be redemption, right? So the flow value will always be the lower amount that makes conversion irrelevant. Lower amount that makes conversion irrelevant. So here we shall say our market value will be equivalent to interest times present value interest factor of an annuity, R% n years, plus redemption amount, redemption value, multiplied by present value interest factor, R% n years. So So here we shall have our interest, which was 9%, 0.09 times 100 times the present value interest factor of an annuity, R%, which was what was our rate? Our rate was 7%. 7% 5 years, plus redemption value of 100 multiplied by present value interest factor at 7% 5 years. Right? So here we shall have 9 multiplied by present value interest factor of an annuity we determine to be 4.1002 plus 100 times PV. Our PV here we had determined to be 0.7130. 0.7130. So what are we getting here as our flow value? When you use your calculator, what are we getting? We are having 108.2018. And that is the conversion value. That is the conversion value. So part 3, we are asked to determine the conversion premium. Conversion premium of the bond. So conversion premium is just a theoretical gain. It is just a theoretical gain that you are getting, that a bondholder gets by accepting to convert rather than doing what? Rather than redeeming that particular bond. So to get your conversion premium, we shall be taking the market value. We less the flow value. Then we divide by the number of shares. We divide by the number of shares. So the conversion premium in this case will be 123.8436 minus 108.2018. Then we divide by number of shares of 20. We divide by 20, the number of shares. What are we getting? $0.7821. So the conversion premium is 0.7821 per share. And that is the conversion premium. Are we together up to that point? Thank you. So that is how we do a question if it comes in that way. And that is all about conversion of a bond, valuation of a convertible bond. So the next concept that I want us to look, we want to look at a security that has got no interest, a security that has got no interest. So here I mean that you are looking or you are determining the value of a zero coupon bond. So we can say valuation of a zero coupon bond. Valuation of a zero coupon bond. A zero coupon bond is a bond that does not give the bondholder periodic interest, right? It does not give the bondholder the periodic interest. So someone will ask you then, how will this bondholder benefit to this on this kind of a debt? So the bondholder will always buy the bond at a discount, right? So we can say that this is a bond in which is always, this is a bond in which is always sold at a discount, and on maturity, it is redeemed at par value, par value. It is always redeemed at par value. So how then will we determine the market value? How then will we determine the market value of this type of a bond? To determine the market value, we always take the redemption amount or the redemption value, then we multiply by the present value interest factor. Present value interest factor, because it's a lump sum, so it will not be an annuity. Present value interest factor, R%, n years. That is how we determine the intrinsic value. So another person will come and say, you can also determine by taking the redemption amount, redemption value, divided by 1 plus R raised to power n. 1 plus R raised to power n. So that is how we determine the intrinsic value of this type of a bond. And we can look at an illustration in May 2019. May 2019. Question number 1B. May 2019, question 1B. May 2019, question number 1B. I've shared the question on the screen, May 2019, question number 1B. We are told Claire Mwatata is planning to invest in a long-term project. An investment banker has provided her with the following 2 investment options. Investment banker has provided her with the following 2 investment options. Option 1, to invest in a corporate bond selling at 875 shillings. The bond will be redeemed after 5 years at 1600 shillings. Option 2, to invest in a 16% debenture with a face value of 100 shillings quoted at 95 shillings. The debenture will be redeemed after 5 years. The debenture will be redeemed after 5 years. The minimum required rate of return is 18% required. Using the yield to maturity valuation model, advise Claire Mwatata in making the investment decision. So here we are asked to advise Claire Mwatata on the investment decision to make. But now we have two types of bond. The first bond, when you look at it, it has got no interest rate attached to it. And we've been told it is selling at 875 shillings, and then it's being redeemed at 1600. So when you look at the characteristic of this bond, it's a zero coupon bond. It is a zero coupon bond. Therefore, to determine the intrinsic value of this bond, we shall do what? We shall use this formula up here. We shall use this formula up here. Right? So this is the formula that we shall use. When we look at it, we've been told it will be issued. So here we have the issue price of how much? We've been told it will be issued at 875 shillings. Then redemption, the redemption price will be 1600. It will be redeemed at 1600 shillings. Then the number of years is 5 years. The required rate of return, or our KD, in this question, we've been told is the minimum required rate of return is 12%. So we are having 12% as the minimum required rate of return. So we can use this formula to determine the intrinsic value, whereby we shall say our intrinsic value will be the redemption amount, which is 1600. 1600 divided by 1 plus r raised power n, or we can use the first one, but let us use this one here, which will be 1 plus r. Our r is 0.12 raised power n of 5 years, raised power n of 5 years. What are we getting? What are we getting? My calculator gives me 907.8830. So that is the redemption, that is the intrinsic value of the bond. That is the intrinsic value of the bond. If we were to advise basing on this bond only, if you were to advise basing on this bond only, how did we come up with the 12%? Look at the question. On the question, we have it there. Oh, sorry. I used the other question. Okay. I overlooked on the other question. So here it's 18%. So 18%, and also here it will be 18%. So it will be 1600 divided by 1 plus 0.18 raised to power 5. So here we are having how much? 699.33747. $699.3747, right? So if you were to use this question to advise, what would we advise this person? The issue price today is 875. This is the issue price. But the market value is 699.37. How would we say? Is the security overvalued or undervalued? Is the security overvalued or undervalued? Someone to tell me, please. What is the we are told it's overvalued. Yes, it's overvalued. So if it's overvalued, what we do? The investor should not invest in that security, right? The investor should not invest. So he should not invest if he wants to buy. If he's selling, then he should sell, right? But in this question, you are told an investor, Claire Mwatata, wants to invest. So she should not invest in security one because it's overvalued. Because it's overvalued. But B, we are asked to invest in a 16% debenture with a face value of 100, quoted at 95. The debenture would be redeemed after 5 years. So that is a redeemable debenture. That is a redeemable debenture. That's a redeemable debenture. So you calculate that one for me and then advise accordingly, right? You'll calculate for me part 2, option 2. Then basing on the 2 answers, you'll be able to advise Claire Mwatata on the investment to undertake, right? So part B, you'll do it for me. Then make sure you advise, and on the group, you'll have to tell me on the decision which you have decided, right? So make sure you do that for me. Any question up to that point? Any question, any question? Okay, if there's no question, we shall proceed on the next item. So while we were introducing this topic, we said that we have 2 types of evaluation of our securities. Number 1, we said that we are valuing, so we are determining the valuation of fixed income. Securities, valuation of fixed income securities. That is the first item that you are determining the value. Then number 2, we are determining, or we are doing valuation of variable return securities. Valuation of variable return securities. The first bit that we have been doing all along was on fixed income securities. And there we looked at valuation of preference shares and valuation of debentures. Those were the 2 items that we are determining. So the next component that we shall be looking at is part number 2, which is the valuation of variable return securities. Valuation of variable return securities. Why are they called variable return? Why are they called variable return? This is because this type of securities normally do not have a fixed income that is attached on those kind of security, but the return will always be attributable to the profits obtained by the company, and also it will be dependent on the decisions made by those type of companies, right? And here basically a good example is the ordinary shares. The ordinary shares. When you look at an ordinary share, they normally earn dividends at the end of the period, right? But these dividends paid will always be dependent on the profitability of the company and on the decisions made by those type of companies. So here we shall look at valuation, valuation of ordinary shares. Valuation of ordinary shares. Valuation of ordinary shares. So, ordinary shares always earn dividends, And since we've said that ordinary shares are not fixed, therefore it means that the amount to be paid will always be dependent with the companies, the type of company, number one. Number two, the decisions made by those types of companies, right? So this one will give us different methods. This one here will give us different methods of valuing ordinary shares. It will give us different methods of valuing ordinary shares. So here we shall say types or methods of valuation of ordinary shares, methods of valuation of ordinary share. Number one, we shall be looking at the net asset method. Net asset method. Number two, we shall be looking at the super profit method. Super profit method. Number three, we shall also look at cash flow model, cash flow method. Under this method, we have two types on it. Number one, we have earning yield method. And we have the price earning ratio. Price earning ratio method. Number three, we also have we have the dividend valuation method. Then number four, lastly, we shall be looking at Walter's model, the Walter's model. Those are the four types of valuation that we shall be looking at when it comes to valuation of ordinary shares. So I want us to start with the first one, which is the net asset method. I want us to start with the first one, which is the net asset method. So the net asset method. When we say net asset, we need first of all to remember the accounting equation. The accounting equation back in financial accounting under the fundamental level. Under fundamental level, we had a financial accounting paper where we had to study about the net asset or the accounting equation. The accounting equation normally states that assets is equals to capital plus liabilities, right? Assets is equals to capital plus liabilities. So the net assets of a company, will be represented by the capital, right? Or alternatively, you can say the net assets. To get your net assets, we take the total assets minus liabilities, right? That is the net assets. But now we cannot use these net assets. We cannot use this one here to determine the value of a firm. Why? Because it's under capital, we have two components, which is the ordinary share capital plus the preference share capital, right? So in this case, this net asset method excludes the preference shares. It excludes the preference shares. So to determine the intrinsic value here, we shall always say we take our net assets minus preference share capital. Net assets minus preference share. This will give us the value of a firm. But when you divide by the number of ordinary shares, when you divide by the number of ordinary shares, it will give us what? The intrinsic value per share. So this is the formula that we shall be using at any given point of time when we are calculating the intrinsic value using the net asset method. Let us look at an illustration. So we shall go to our past papers. In November 2016, we have November 2016 question number 1. So there is the question. November 2016 question number 1C. It says, the following data was extracted from the financial statements of XYZ Limited for the year ended 30th September 2016. We are having total assets, total liabilities, preference share capital, earnings per share, price earnings ratio, outstanding number of ordinary shares required, book value per share, market price per share, market value to book value ratio, market value to book value ratio. That is the question. So here, when you look at that question, they have not directly told you to determine the intrinsic value, right? But the book value will always represent the par value, right? No, yeah, it will always represent the par value. When you look at the par value, it is always the amount that has been that the security is selling at conception of the business, right? So here we shall say we've been given the total assets. We've been given the total assets, and here we say that assets is equals to capital plus liabilities. But now, to get the book value, we shall take the net assets minus the preference shares, right? Then we divide by a number of ordinary shares. Then how do we get the net assets? To get your net assets, you shall take assets minus liabilities. So here, in short, we shall say we take our total assets, which has been given by 7 million. When you look at the question, we've been told the total assets is 7 million. So we shall say 7 million minus liabilities of how much? Total liabilities of 4 million. That will give us our net assets. Then we less our preference shares of how much? 500,000. We shall less preference shares of 500,000 divided by number of ordinary share. We've been told that the outstanding number of ordinary share is 400,000. Outstanding number of ordinary share is 400,000. So we shall divide by 400,000 in that manner. So what is the answer that you get here? What are we getting? Thank you. 6.25. So here we shall be getting the book value at 6.25 shillings per share. And that's the answer. Sawa sawa. That is the answer that you are getting us at that question. Part B and C, we shall do them later in the next subtopics. So our question in this part was just to determine how to get our net assets, how to get the intrinsic value by use of the net asset method. And that is how we determine it. Are we together up to that point? So that is how we determine it. We go to the second method. Which is the super profit method. The super profit method. Super profit method. When we say super profits, it means that the company has incorporated the aspect of goodwill in its financial statements, right? In its financial statements. So we have incorporated the aspect of goodwill. So in this case, to determine our intrinsic value by use of super profit, so to get our intrinsic value we shall say we take our net assets plus the goodwill. We divide by number of ordinary shares. Number of ordinary shares. That is how we determine our intrinsic value. But it is very difficult to determine the goodwill unless the examiner has given it to you, right? So how then will we get our goodwill? How then will we get our goodwill? Someone will ask you, what is goodwill? Our goodwill is just a component, an intangible asset, right? It's an intangible asset in the business. So here, how will we get our goodwill? To get your goodwill, we must be having the super profits. We must be having the super profits. So to get your goodwill, we shall say is equals to super profits multiplied by number of years, multiplied by number of years. Super profit multiplied by number of years. In this case, again, the super profits, we must be in a position to get the super profits, right? Super profits are just profits for the future periods. Super profits for the future periods. So to get your super profits, we shall be taking our expected profits minus the fair value of returns. Fair value of returns. Fair value of returns. Expected profit minus the fair value of returns. So when you look at this formula, it has got some formulas which you need to know before you calculate what? The intrinsic value. Before you calculate the intrinsic value. Super profit, you take the expected profit minus fair value of returns. Goodwill, you take the super profits multiplied by the number of years. Then you can now get your intrinsic value, taking your net assets plus goodwill divided by the number of ordinary shares. Let us look at an illustration. Let us look at an illustration here. In May 2019, an illustration in May 2019. May 2019. Question number 2. Question 2B, part 2. Question number 2B, part 2. It says, question 2B part 2, it says, XYZ Limited has a net tangible assets worth 48 million and a return on assets of 12%. The company expects to receive a profit of 10 million annually for the next 5 years. The company has 2 million outstanding ordinary shares required. The theoretical value per share using the super profit model. Theoretical value per share using the super profit model. That is the question. The examiner has been very direct and he has told you to determine the super profit, right? So that is it. We shall start from getting our super profits. We shall start from getting our super profits. We said that the super profit is equals to expected profit minus the fair value of return. In this question, we've been told that the super profit is the expected profit, which we are expecting to receive 10 million annually. So our expected profit is 10 million minus the fair value of returns. Fair value of returns, we've been told we are having a net asset of 48 million and a return on asset of 12%. So here the fair value of return will be 12% of 48 million, 12% of 48 million, which will give us how much? What are we getting? So we shall have 10 million minus 48% of 12 million. So we have 4.24 This man is saying 5.76. So it will be 10 million minus 5.76. 10 million minus 5.76, which is 4.24. So here we are having 4.24. So this is our super profits. This is our super profits, right? Then the next item is to determine the goodwill. How will we get our goodwill? Super profit multiplied by the number of years. So here we shall say 4.24 multiplied by number of years of 5 years. We've been told it's 5 years, right? My calculator gives me 21.2, right? So 4.24 times 5, we are having 21.2 million. So this is our goodwill. This is our goodwill. Then we shall use the formula here to determine our intrinsic value, whereby we say our net assets, which are 48 million, plus our goodwill of 21.2 million, divided by number of ordinary shares. We've been told that the number of ordinary shares ni ngapi? The company has 2 million outstanding ordinary shares. We have 2 million outstanding ordinary shares. So we shall divide by 2. We shall divide by 2. What will we get? So here we are having 34.6 shillings per share. So every share will be selling at 34.6 shillings, right? 34.6 shillings. And that is how we get our intrinsic value by use of the super profit model. By use of the super profit model. Any question up to that point? Okay, so we go to the next part. Which will be cash flow based model. We said number 3 is the cash flow based model. And under this model, we said that we have 2 of them. The first one, we said that we have the earnings yield. Earnings yield model. So we shall start with the first one, which is the earnings yield or the earnings valuation model. Earnings yield or the earnings valuation model. Earnings valuation model. So in this case, we normally assume that the company is operating on a going concern basis. The company is operating or it's being sold on a going concern basis. Therefore, the intrinsic value of the firm will be the expected value of the expected future profits, the expected value of the expected future value. Right? So since we are doing or we are trying to determine the expected future profits, it is very difficult to determine a true value, right? We'll just be doing projections, but that is not the reality. So in this case, to determine the future profits, we shall always use the average of the past profits. We shall be using the average of the past profits to determine the future profits, right? So here we shall say the intrinsic value will be determined by taking the value of the farmer divided by value of the farm divided by the number of ordinary shares. But now, how do we get the value of the farmer? To get the value of the farm, we shall be taking the future profits divided by the earnings yield. Divided by the earnings yield, right? But now, the future profits, how will we get the future profits? We said that we shall always use the average of the past profits. So to get your future profits, we shall be using past profits, sum of the past profits, divided by number of years. Divided by number of years. Divided by the number of years. So in this case, we can be in a position to determine the intrinsic value, right? So let us have an illustration. Let us have an illustration. Let us have an illustration in November 2017. November 2017. November 2017, question number 5. Question number 5. Question number 5B. There is the question. So that is our question. Let's look at it. It says, Dare Limited has provided the following financial results. We are having 2014 to 2017, and their profit after tax in millions. The firm's earning yield is 12%. Required, the value of the firm based on the present value and of the expected earning approach. So that is what we are required to do. That is what we are required to do. So in this case, we must first of all determine our future profits as per the question. So how will we get the future profits? Sum of the past profit divided by number of years. Sum of the past profit divided by number of years. So here we shall take 6.0 plus 6.2 plus 6.3 plus 6.3 plus divided by number of years of 4. What are we getting? So here it's 6.0 plus 6.2 plus 6.3 plus 6.3 divided by 4. We're having 6.2. Thank you. $6.2 to be our future profits. Value of the firm will be the future profits divided by earnings yield. So the future profits we are having of 6.2, we divide by earnings yield. Our earnings yield in this case, we've been told is 12%. We've been told that our earnings yield is 12%. Earnings yield is 12%. So we shall divide it by 0.12. 0.12. Tupate ngapi? 51.667, right? 51.667. So once you determine your value of the farmer, you can next determine the intrinsic value. But in this question, we haven't been asked on intrinsic value, but we've been asked the value of the farm. We've been asked the value of the farm, right? So if we were asked to determine the intrinsic value, then the examiner could have provided us with the number of ordinary shares. He could have provided us with the number of ordinary shares, which will always help us to determine what? The intrinsic value per share. So our question will remain at that point, which will be shillings 51.667. And that is the value of the farmer. So, any question up to that point before we go to the next item? So that is all about earnings valuation model. We go to the next one, which is a price earning ratio model. Price earning model. Price earning ratio model. So under this model, we are looking at the ratio analysis formula. We are looking at the ratio analysis formula, whereby we always have a ratio known as price earning ratio. We have the price earning ratio, which is normally abbreviated as PE ratio. The price earning ratio is normally calculated by taking your MPS over EPS. When I say MPS, is the market price per share divided by earnings per share, So under this model, it normally assumes that the market value, the market value per share is always equal to the intrinsic value per share. So here we can say that our intrinsic value is always equal to our market value per share. Therefore, in determining the intrinsic value is always the same as determining your MPS, right? Therefore, it says that to get your MPS, we shall always make the MPS under the price earning ratio the subject of the formula, whereby we shall say that our MPS is equals to earnings per share multiplied by price earning ratio, right? So this is the formula of getting our intrinsic value. Hence we can say intrinsic value is the same as EPS multiplied by price earning, And that's how we determine the intrinsic value. So, illustration. Let us look at November 2016. November 2016. Question number 1C, the question which we had done earlier. The question which we had done earlier. I believe we are all there. We are told the following data was created from the financial statements of XYZ Limited for the year ended 30th September 2016. We are having total assets, total liabilities, preference share capital, earnings per share, price earning ratio, outstanding number of ordinary shares, required, book value per share, market price per share, market value to book value ratio. So we had calculated part 1 while we are doing the net asset method. So part 2 shall be determined by the price earning model. Will be determined by price earning model, because you say that here to determine your market price per share, we take our earnings per share multiplied by price earning ratio. And that is what they asked on the question. That is what they have asked on the question. So here we want to determine our EPS, which has been given to be, our earnings per share is 1.10. Our earnings per share is 1.10 multiplied by our price earning ratio. Our price earning ratio has been given as 15. It has been given as 15. So we can say our intrinsic value or our market price per share will be equivalent to 1.10 multiplied by 15, which is 16.5, right? So here we are having 16.5 shillings per share. So here we shall say 16.5 per share. So 16 shillings 0.5 per share. And that is how we determine our intrinsic value by use of price earning ratio model, right? Then part last, where we've been asked, the last part we've been asked, market value to book value ratio, market value to book value ratio. So we'll be taking your market value to book value, market value to book value. So here, our market value will always be the numerator and the book value the denominator, right? So we take our market value, which we have calculated here to be 16.5. We divide by our book value. What was our book value? What was the answer of book value? Someone to remind me, please. The answer that we are calculating as per the book value, we use the net asset model. $6.25, thank you. So 16.5 divided by 6.25. What are we getting? So here we are having 2.64. So this is the market value to book value ratio. They've said ratio, so it will be 1:1. 2.64 is to 1. 2.64 is to 1. And that is how we determine the market value to book value ratio. Sawa sawa. Any question up to that point? Any question up to that point? Now the floor is there for the question. So if there's no question, we shall stop it at that point. Then we shall continue in our next class. Have a lovely evening.